On day 1, I spawned in as a medieval knight. And look at that, I already have iron gear and 10 hearts. It was a good thing I had the gear, because I was immediately attacked by a group of hoglins. Where did you guys come from? Since I had an iron sword, I was able to defeat the first few with no problems. The last, however, started to run away. Hey, get back here! The hoglin ran into the woods and I ran after him, but soon I couldn't see which way he went. Which way did he go? I ran in the direction he had been going before, and soon stumbled on a large fort in the distance. I could see the hoglin looking down at me from the second floor. I started running toward the entrance of the fort when suddenly the ground opened up and I fell into a dark hole. Ah! 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 Why am I still falling? Just as I was starting to think I might be falling forever, I suddenly landed in a pool of water. Where am I? I swam out of the pool and saw I was in a dimly lit, dark underground area. And what was this? Now I only have 5 hearts? I was so confused. Maybe this was all just a bad dream. I saw a good spot to rest and set up a small camp. Maybe if I could fall asleep, I could wake up from this nightmare. On day 2, I woke up, still in the same place. I decided it was best that I look around and try to find out what was going on. Level 100. I guess I better see what's behind this door. I climbed up the stairs and saw another door, which was also labeled. Level 99. Okay, interesting. I'm guessing level 1 is how I get out of here. This is gonna be quite the journey. I better start looking for the door up. As I walked further into the room, I realized that this didn't look like a room at all. The area was a dark jungle, and there was even a sky. This must be some kind of powerful magic. I better start collecting some supplies. Who knows what could be hiding out here? I started by knocking some cocoa beans off a tree, then started punching the trees to collect some wood. After I had gathered a decent amount, I started walking through the trees to look for a door. I soon found a nice pond to stop at to rest. As I rested, I was suddenly attacked by a pack of mungai. What did I do to you? These little guys were vicious. If you saw them from afar, you would probably think they were pretty cute, but it turns out they were all just a bunch of little imposters. Shouldn't you little minions be helping a supervillain somewhere? They put up a tough challenge, but my iron sword was too much for them, and ultimately, they were all defeated. Sheesh, I gotta hurry and find that door. I kept wandering through the forest and eventually saw something glowing off in the distance. Is that it? Is this the door to the next level? I opened it up and headed up the stairs. On day 3, I emerged onto level 98. Okay, it looks like that was the door to the next level. I'm glad I didn't run into any more mobs, but I'll have to keep an eye out. Turned out I needed to keep an ear out too, because just then I heard someone calling for help.
Help me, can someone help?
Who could that be? I rushed toward the sound of the voice and stumbled upon a man being attacked by a group of mungai. Uh-oh, not more of these fun guys. I hopped in with my iron sword and started slashing away. I could tell they had nearly killed this poor guy. What do you think you're doing? You belong in soup. I swung away until there was only one left, and as I killed the last one, my iron sword broke. Well, I'm glad they're gone, but so is my only weapon. Anyway, how are you doing, buddy? The man rose to his feet. He was clearly hurt, but was hanging on.
That was a close one. Thank you for rescuing me. I was a dead man for sure.
No problem. Say, do you know what's going on here?
Well, one moment I was walking through the forest looking to sell my wares. I'm a traveling merchant, you see. And the next I was falling down what seemed to be an eternal pit. I landed at the bottom and have been trying to make my way out ever since.
Sounds like we're in the same boat. If we stick together, we can get out of here faster.
C'est magnifique. Let's do it. Oh, zoot.
The merchant tried to take a couple of steps, but his leg was clearly hurt.
It's my leg, but do not fret, mon ami. We will persevere. By the way, my name is Benoit. What is yours?
The name's Zozo.
Zozo what?
Just Zozo. Sorry, I phrased that weird. Let's go! On days 4 to 5, we had made our way up a few floors to level 95. On the previous floor, I had crafted some wooden tools to fend off some weaker mobs, but nothing too major had happened. Benoit's leg was keeping us from moving too fast, but everything was going well so far. Hey, it looks like there's some stone deposits up ahead. Let's try and get some stones for new tools. Benoit took a seat while I got out my wooden pickaxe and started mining out some stone. After I had mined out a decent amount, I put down my crafting table and fashioned together a full set of stone tools. I also made an extra sword so Benoit could defend himself. Here you go, Benoit, just in case anything happens. Using my new stone pickaxe, I decided to keep mining into the stone deposit. Maybe I could find some iron. As I continued to dig through, I couldn't believe what I found. Is this the next door? Why was it buried under the stone? These doors aren't going to be as easy to find as I thought. I opened the door and sure enough, there was a staircase leading up to the next level. Come on, Benoit, let's see what's waiting for us ahead. On days 6 through 8, we reached level 93, and I noticed things were a little different than the other floors. A few monkeys scampered by, and I could see an arena up ahead. Something doesn't feel right. Benoit, I think you should hang back while I go check things out. I approached the building slowly, but I didn't see anything, so I stepped inside. Just then, I heard a thump as a big bun fungus slowly emerged from the shadows and into the light. Easy there, big guy.
Carrot, give me carrot.
I don't have a carrot, but maybe we can find you something else.
Give carrot or you carrot.
Me carrot, I'm not a carrot.
No, you carrot. I eat carrot.
Me no carrot.
You carrot.
No carrot.
Carrot.
The bun fungus lunged at me and attacked. Our conversation wasn't really going anywhere, so it was probably best just to get into it. I'm not a carrot, knock it off. For as silly as he was, the bun fungus was really strong. Clearly he was always eating his carrots, which was contributing to his powerful blows. How about you take a bite of this? I swung my sword again and again as he chased me around the arena. He was getting some hits in, but I was holding my own. After a hard-fought battle, I was able to land the final blow, and the bun fungus was defeated. As he disappeared, I noticed he had also dropped a compass and a small crystal. I took a look at the compass first. Door locator. Is this what I think it is? I took a closer look at the compass and could see the compass was pointing me in a direction. I'll have to see if that leads me to a door. But before that, I took a look at the crystal. I'm not sure what this is supposed to do exactly. What happens when I place it? I set the crystal down, and suddenly, an image of a princess began broadcasting out of it.
Hello there. I've been captured by the wizard who controls this fort, and am in need of someone like you to rescue me. Help me, brave adventurer. You're my only hope.
Oh no, she must be in real trouble. I gotta get to the top. I headed back outside and met up with Benoit. I explained the situation and he agreed to help as much as he could. We took out the compass and headed in the direction it pointed us. We soon saw the door and headed inside, but this time there was something different, an elevator. I wonder what that's about. There was a staircase leading up to the next level, but next to the elevator was a power switch, so I flipped it on. Let's see where this goes. Benoit and I entered the elevator and hit the button inside. The elevator started to move. On days 9 through 11, we stepped out of the elevator into a large cave. Wait a second, this is the cave where I started. I took a look around to be sure, but there was no mistake. This was the same cave.
If this brings us back to this floor, that makes me think there will be more elevators on future floors. Maybe we can set up a base here.
That makes sense to me. How are you feeling?
Definitely better, but I don't know if I can keep going up the stairs. How about I get things started down here, and you go look for the princess?
That's a great plan. Before I go though, I think we should set up some kind of distraction to scare away any mobs that might try to come after you. I was thinking I could build a large statue.
Great idea.
I got straight to it, working on the statue. I thought it should be something scary, but also something that could believably be in this world. After a bit, I had finished the first part. This is coming along great. Can you guess what it's going to be? With the first part complete, I headed back over to the elevator and stepped inside. There was just a button inside. I wonder how high it will take me. On days 12 to 14, I emerged from the elevator to see that I had returned to the same level as before. I must have to activate the elevator on a given floor to travel to it. Looks like there's no shortcuts. I then entered the door to the stairs nearby and headed up to the next floor. When I walked out, I saw that the biome was completely new. I was now in a swamp biome. This is a swamp, but the water looks off. In fact, it looks poisoned. To test this out, I headed to the edge of the water and tossed some wood I had into it. With the sizzle, the wood disintegrated completely. Oh, I'm gonna have to watch my step, otherwise that could be me. Unlucky for me though, I could see my only way forward was going to be jumping on lily pads across the swamp. I sure hope those parkour lessons were worth it. I jumped ahead, landing on the lily pad. I had some close calls too, as some of the lily pads were actually drop leaves. That could have easily dropped me into the poison. Phew, I'm glad I made it across. Well, let's find that door. I started heading in the direction of the next door. I really hope I'm not too late to save the princess. As I was walking, I was suddenly attacked by a giant mosquito. No hugs, no hugs. The mosquito was vicious. I tried to keep it away, but it kept wrapping itself around me, trying to bite me. It did some serious damage. Get off of me, you bloodthirsty psychopath. I managed to knock it back and hit the mosquito with my sword, finally defeating it. Look, I don't want to run into another one of those ever again. I kept following the compass and headed off to find the next door. On day 15, I had made my way to floor 85 when I saw a house in the distance. Another house. I wonder if there's another monster hiding inside. I gotta be careful. I took my sword out and started sneaking up to the door when the door swung open. Charge!
Wait!
I stopped running and realized it was just an old woman. Oh, sorry about that. I'm not used to meeting people who don't attack me.
That is quite alright. I'm not used to meeting new faces either. I've heard of many people coming to this place, but so far none of them have made it this far. You must be the most skilled of them all.
Thank you, but you mentioned others? What do you know of this place? The woman took a deep breath before beginning her story.
Hundreds of years ago, a young wizard lived alone in the mountains. In his isolation, he became a powerful wielder of magic. For a time, he would show others his magic, but was laughed at and bullied for being weird. Then one day, a young knight asked him for his help uniting the broken kingdom. The pair forged a powerful friendship, and peace was restored to the land. However, the young knight, now king, wanted the wizard to do more. He didn't just want peace in his kingdom, but he wanted to control the entire world. When the wizard refused, the king banished him. Now he lives here, capturing and toying with wayward knights and explorers as revenge for what his friend did to him.
That's awful. It almost makes me feel bad for him.
Don't. He didn't have to do this. He made his choice. He's nothing like the wizard he once was, and has been corrupted in his anger.
I see. Well, that helps. I better get going. The wizard has to be stopped. You should come with me.
Thank you for the offer, but I'm actually quite happy with the new life I've built. It suits me here. But I have something that should help you.
The old woman tossed out a potion of endurance. I picked it up and took a drink. Immediately I felt my strength returning, and I regained all 10 of my hearts. Oh wow, I feel amazing. Thank you for this.
You're very welcome, young man. Take this as well. You might find yourself needing it out there.
She threw out a poison resistance potion, which I picked up. Thanks again for all of your help. I'm sure we'll see each other again. On days 16 to 19, I was traversing the swamp when I came across a cave. These stone tools aren't going to cut it for much longer. I should see if I can find some iron in that cave. I headed into the cave and soon saw several iron ores. I got to mining and managed to mine a few of them. Alright, let's go see if I can get a few more. I started making my way down the cave when I heard a horrible roar. I turned around and saw a huge crocodile looking right at me. Uh-oh, this doesn't look good. The crocodile charged at me and attacked. His powerful jaws did a lot of damage. My stone sword felt like it was barely doing anything. My iron armor was pretty weak, and he even managed to break some of it. With armor missing, my health was really starting to drop, so I had no choice but to run away. Okay, you win this one. I ran back out of the cave, and luckily the crocodile didn't follow me out. Man, there was so much more iron in there. How much did I get? I took a look and saw I had gotten enough for maybe a couple of tools, but that was it. Well, I don't have enough to fix my armor and make new tools. I'll only be able to do one or the other. I decided that I would build a sword and do my best not to get hit. I quickly made a forge, smelted down the iron I had, and crafted an iron sword. This is gonna be a risky move, but who knows how likely I am to find more iron. I equipped my sword and snuck back into the cave. As I made my way, I could see the crocodile just up ahead. He hadn't noticed me. With the amount of armor I had left, I could probably only take a couple of hits. Here goes nothing. I sprang into action and started furiously swinging my sword. I jumped forward and back, doing my best to dodge the croc's bites. Despite my best efforts, he managed to get a hit in. Uh-oh, this is gonna be a close one. The crocodile snapped at me furiously, but at long last, I was able to land the fatal blow. Oh man, let's not do that again. With the crocodile out of the way, I mined out the rest of the iron I needed. With the freshly mined iron, I smelted it down and made myself a new set of iron armor, which I gratefully equipped. I'm feeling safer already. On to the next room. From days 20 to 22, I eventually found myself on floor 78, which looked extremely similar to the floor the bun fungus was on, or at least the building in front of me did. Okay, this building looks just like that other one. There's gotta be a scary monster hiding in this one. There was just one problem. The building was completely surrounded by poison water. How am I gonna get across this? I threw down a crafting table and quickly made a boat. I set the boat in the water, but it immediately started smoking and disappeared into the poison. That was when I remembered the poison resistance potion the old woman had given me. I drank it down and jumped into the water. I probably should have just dipped a toe in before jumping all the way in, but it seems to be working. As I crossed, I saw some clay at the bottom of the swamp, so I stopped and mined some of it out. I can use this for the statue. With the clay collected, I continued across the swamp and soon reached the other side. I made my way up to the opening of the arena and took a peek inside, but didn't see anything. The arena was filled with poison, but my potion had run out. I hopped across the drop leaves, just barely making it to the other side. Phew, that was a close one. I don't see anything though. What was that? Suddenly, a strange plant creature rose out of the swamp and started moving toward me. It was a whisperer. Alright, no need to panic. He let out a shriek and started to attack. This whisperer was insane. He would wave his arms, which caused plants to fly up from the ground. He also summoned a large flower that would attack me. Oh, I gotta get out of the way of these plants. I jumped around the arena, using the lily pads to try and get hits in, but his special attacks were making this difficult. The closer I can get, the better chance I'll have. It was risky having to jump across the poison pond, but if I couldn't get close enough to get hits in, there was no way I was going to win. You're not so tough at close range, are you? Finally was able to start wearing him down and let out a flurry of hits. Soon enough, he was down. As he disappeared, I noticed a chest on the other side of the room. What could be in here? I popped the chest open and saw it was full of gold ingots. I'm not sure what I'll do with these, but I'll hang on to them, just in case. With my new loot, I looked ahead and saw the door leading to the next level. Inside of it was another elevator. I flipped the nearby switch to activate it. I'll bet this takes me back to the first level. I should go see what Benoit is up to. I entered the elevator and headed down. On days 23 to 26, I re-entered the cave and saw that Benoit had been making some small improvements to the base. He had set up a small crafting and smelting area, but had another request for me.
Zozo, mon ami, could you give me a hand with this next project? I need a place to sell my wares.
I agreed, and we got to work building Benoit a shop. It seemed a little silly since, as far as I knew, I was the only customer he could have, but he was a nice guy and I wanted to help.
C'est bon, this shop is amazing. Merci, Zozo.
No problem. So have you got something to sell?
As a matter of fact, I do. If you have some money for me, I'd be happy to sell to you.
I don't have any money, but I do have some gold bars. Give me 1 second. I headed over to the crafting area and tossed out some of the gold bars. Using my pick, I managed to shape them into some gold coins. These should work great. I headed over to Benoit and asked him what he had in stock.
For now, the only item I have in stock is a bow and some arrows. I'm hoping to find some more inventory around the caves.
A bow could be really helpful, actually. I'll take it. I tossed Benoit some of my coins and took the bow and arrows off the shelf in return. With my new item, I was going to be even more deadly than before. On days 27 to 31, I decided I would do some work on the statue before heading back up the tower. Benoit seemed to be pretty safe so far, but the sooner we could finish the statue, the safer I felt he could be. Soon, I'd finished the second part. Go ahead and put your guesses for what it will be in the comments. And while you're down there, feel free to hit subscribe and ring the bell. I love having you on these adventures with me. Next, I headed over to the elevator to take it back up the tower. On the next level, I saw I was now in a Badlands biome. Okay, I'm starting to see the pattern here. Looks like every so often there's a mini-boss, and then the next floors take place in a new biome. Interesting. I didn't have too long to think about it though, as I was suddenly attacked by a couple of tarantula hawks. Stay back, you buzzards! These guys weren't too big, but they were intense. I was actually really surprised by how strong they were, given their size. They were trying to keep their distance, but I was able to use my new bow to get hits on them. It didn't take too much longer, and I was able to take them all out of the sky. These mobs are getting tougher with each floor. I can't even imagine what's waiting for me on floor 1. That's when I noticed that the durability on my bow had greatly depleted. Hey, what's this? My bow isn't very durable. I'm gonna have to have a chat with Benoit about this later. On days 32 to 35, I had reached floor 64 when I noticed there was some terracotta nearby. Ooh, I'm gonna need that for the statue. I better go pick it up. I mined out a good portion of terracotta, then continued on my way. This Badlands area was huge. It's going to be tough to find the door. As I continued to explore, I nearly ran into a rattlesnake. Oh, watch out! I whipped out my sword and gave it a few strong swings, quickly taking it out. That was a close one.
Not too shabby.
I looked to the side and saw a small roadrunner was watching me.
I saw you fighting tarantula hawks earlier, as well as that snake. The tarantula hawks kidnapped my daughter. Would you be able to help me rescue her?
I'd be happy to help. Show me the way. The roadrunner pointed to where I needed to go and I set off. As I reached the area the roadrunner had mentioned, I realized I had made a mistake. Oh brother, this is obviously some kind of joke. The daughter was clearly a stuffed dummy, and there was a cage suspended right above it, plainly meant to trap me inside. What is this, some kind of kid's cartoon where a roadrunner tries to outsmart those around him? Like I'd fall for that. I took another step forward to get a better look, when suddenly the sand beneath my feet gave way, and I fell into a massive hole. I can't believe I fell for that. On days 36 to 39, I was still falling. This feels like the hole I fell into on day 1. Seconds later, I crashed into a pool of water. I looked around and yep, I was back in the starting cave. You've got to be kidding me, this place is full of jerks. Which reminds me, I need to talk to Benoit about that bow he sold me. I made my way back over to the base and saw Benoit standing in a shop. Hey, that bow you sold me nearly broke after one fight. I paid good money for this.
Oh dear Zozo, I am so sorry. I would never intentionally sell you a poor quality product. Please, let me give you a discount on the next item.
Okay, fair enough. What have you got? Benoit tossed out an enchanted fire aspect iron sword.
I think you'll find this sword is the quality you're looking for.
I closely looked over the sword and everything seemed to be in order. Even with the discount, it still cost me the rest of my gold. From there, I headed back into the elevator and eventually reached the floor I'd been on before. I could see the roadrunner not too far away. Hey you! What's the big idea? Throwing me down that pit? Upon hearing my voice, he jumped in the air and started running away. Hey, get back over here. I've got something to say to you. The roadrunner was fast. I did my best to keep up with him, but it looked like he was getting away. Lucky for me though, he ran into a dead end. Now you listen here, I'm getting really tired of these games. I walked over to him and hit him once with my new sword.
Ouch! Okay, don't hurt me. I'm just so bored and thought it would be a funny prank. You didn't actually get hurt, right?
No, but I didn't think it was very funny. I'm in a bit of a rush, so it's frustrating to have to go up all those stairs over and over again. I'll let you live, but don't mess with me. I left the roadrunner and headed in the direction of the next door. On days 40 to 43, I was exploring the new floor when I noticed something was following me. I turned around and caught a glimpse of who it was. That roadrunner again. He better not be up to something. But just then, a huge guster came out of nowhere and attacked me. This big guy was tough. I tried hitting him with my sword, but he seemed to be immune from the fire damage. He managed to hit me a few more times, and my health was getting seriously low. He even managed to suck me into his vortex and throw me into the air. It looks like this might be the end for me. But before the guster could deliver the final blow, the roadrunner jumped out and finished it off. Wow, thank you. But why are you helping me?
I felt bad for pranking you. Clearly you're just trying to do the right thing. My name is Rhodey. Here, let me show you something I think you will like.
I followed the Roadrunner for a bit and soon saw he had led me to an oasis. There was a small hut nearby too. It looked like it used to be a smithy. You're right, this place is just what I needed. Thanks for showing it to me. Feel free to stick around. The Roadrunner agreed and I went and looked in the chest. Inside, I found some iron ingots as well as a shield. Using the iron ingots, I managed to repair my armor as well.
Take a look at that tree, too.
I headed outside and saw that the nearby tree was no ordinary tree. There were some golden apples growing on it. I walked around the tree and knocked some of them off. These are going to be a huge help in the fight ahead. On days 44 to 49, we continued crossing the desert until we saw a large desert arena in the distance. I could see a corridor ahead leading into the stadium with 2 guards standing by. Hey, Rhodey, why don't you hang back while I check this out? It could be a trap, a real trap. I tried talking to the guards, but neither of them said anything. As I started to walk into the corridor, a bunch of arrows started firing. And this is the only way in? Great. I stepped into the arrows, trying to use my shield to block them. I managed to block some of the arrows, but I still took a ton of damage. With 1 heart left, I finally got through. Yeah, that could have gone better. I finally stepped into the arena. After I had stepped inside, the doors closed behind me. That's not good. Just then, a man dressed like a wither skeleton was standing on a platform at the top of the arena.
Ladies and gentlemen, our challenger has arrived. A big round of applause, please.
Hey, buddy. You know it's just us here, right?
Thank you for that warm welcome. And now, let the games begin.
This guy was clearly nuts. He must have been in the desert for too long. Just then, another door opened and a husk came running out. A single husk? What a joke. This is going to be so easy. Just then, a huge horde came running out after him. I guess it wasn't going to be so easy after all. The husks weren't very strong, but there were a lot of them. To keep them from ganging up on me, I ran ahead to get them in a line. Suddenly, the ground shook and parts of the arena floor opened, revealing pools of lava. What kind of sick games are these? I kept trying to get the husks lined up as I took care not to fall into the lava. Once they were lined up, I started to quickly cut through them, one at a time. It took a little while, but finally, they were all defeated. Okay, yay, I won. Can you let me out now?
We have a winner. Time for round 2.
The floor shook again as some pillars rose up from the floor, and this time, a few giant and normal-sized gladiators came charging at me. How many rounds of this am I gonna have to do? Luckily for me, the 2 big gladiators turned on each other, with one of them taking the other out. The bad news was that they were now all focused on me. I ran around the stadium, doing my best to try and block the trident throws and get hits in. This was a much tougher fight, but I was determined to win. Eventually, I was able to take out the trident guy, so I could focus solely on the gladiator. You know what they say about the big guys. The bigger they are, the harder they fall. I managed to get the gladiator lined up with a pit of lava. I swung my sword, knocking him in and defeating him.
Ladies and gentlemen, the final round.
The arena shook again as the lava pits and columns disappeared. Then a door opened and a huge scorpion came running out. This wasn't gonna be easy. This was gonna be my hardest fight yet. If I can just stay away from that stinger, I might be able to do this. The scorpion was tough and hit hard. Ouch! You'll pay for that. Suddenly, the arena shook again and the lava pits and columns returned. But this time, they kept moving in and out. That guy just couldn't make this easy for me, could he? Kept fighting the scorpion, and at one point, my health had dropped dangerously low. But I couldn't give up now. At one point, I was able to catch the scorpion in the lava pit, but he was able to crawl back out. Looks like I'm just gonna have to do this the old-fashioned way. I kept hitting it with blow after blow with my sword until at long last it was defeated.
And the crowd goes wild! Well done, brave sir, well done! Please take the spoils of your accomplishment.
Another door opened, revealing a room with a chest. I headed over and took a look inside. An elite power bow. And whoa, tons and tons of gold! Just then, Rhodey came running up to me.
Hey, nice job. I was thinking I would keep adventuring with you, but after seeing that, you mind if I live at your base?
That shouldn't be a problem. Let's go. I entered the next room where an elevator was waiting. We went inside and headed back to the base. On days 50 to 53, Rhodey and I emerged from the elevator back at the base. Rhodey was going to need a place to live, so we got right to work building him his own space. I wanted him to feel right at home. When we had finished, Benoit came over and asked if I could give him a hand with the statue. Benoit and I used some of the blocks he had collected to build out the next part of the statue. He said things had been going well since I had been here last, and he even had something new for me to buy in his shop. We soon finished, and I headed over to his shop. Alright, so you said you've got something new for me?
Oui, take a look. I have a whole stack of diamonds. I'm sure these will be very useful for you.
I paid Benoit with the gold I had won from the arena, then took all of the diamonds over to the crafting area. I put together a full set of diamond armor, then used what was left to make a diamond sword, as well as a whole set of diamond tools. That princess has nothing to worry about. I'm on my way. On days 54 to 57, I made my way back up the elevator and stairs and emerged in a frozen tundra. Oh man, it's freezing. I don't know how long I can stay out here. Just then, I noticed that my health started to decrease. I was literally freezing. To make sure I didn't freeze to death, I got right to work, building a quick igloo and campfire. This is going to be tough going. I'm not going to be able to survive away from a heat source for too long. Once I had warmed up, I set back out, following the direction of my compass. As I traveled, I kept having to take breaks and set up a small fire to warm up. Eventually, I found the door, built into an ice spike. I made one more stop to warm up. I wasn't sure what was going to be on the next level. Once I was feeling good, I entered and headed on up. On days 58 to 62, I had reached the next floor and noticed that the weather wasn't as bad here. I think my armor is enough to keep me warm. Thank goodness. I was moving at a glacial pace before. I pressed on and soon saw a penguin. How adorable. I should go say hi. I ran up to the penguin when it suddenly attacked. Whoa, I thought you were supposed to be cute and cuddly. I managed to fight off the penguin when I heard something just ahead. I ran forward and saw a bunch of penguins standing around something. It was another adventurer. Hey, leave him alone. I charged and began swinging at the penguins. They were feisty little fighters, but I was able to overwhelm them and take them out. I headed over to the adventurer. Oh no, it looks like he's dead. But what's this? Laying on top of him was a crystal, similar to the one I had picked up earlier. I set it down and the princess appeared, saying the same thing as the one I had found. But wait a second, this princess looks completely different. There must be two princesses in danger. That's the only thing I can think of that makes sense. I better hurry up. Soon after, my compass had led me to the door and I headed in and up the stairs. On days 63 to 66, I emerged on a floor that looked like an ice beach. Ahead in the water, there was a huge ice spike. My compass had been pointing me to it, so I assumed that was where I needed to go. In the distance, I could see a bridge leading out to the spike, but as I started to cross it, I saw that the end of the bridge had been destroyed. It looks like I can still get across by jumping across those smaller ice spikes, but it's gonna be tricky. If I slipped and fell, I'd be falling into sub-zero water, where I could quickly freeze to death. I had to be careful. I was about halfway across when I nearly slipped. Whoa, whoa, whoa! I was right on the edge, so close that it almost looked like I was floating over the edge. I regained my composure and managed to make it the rest of the way across. Phew, next time I do parkour, it's gonna have to be with lower stakes. I kept jumping and finally made it across the gap. I started to climb the ice spike. When I got to the top, I nearly jumped off in fear. There was a massive polar bear waiting for me. This must be the boss to get through to the next door. Wish me luck. I charged as the polar bear let out a large roar. He swung and nearly knocked me over the edge several times. This guy is tough. How am I gonna beat him? Just then, I had an idea. I was scared of falling off, but shouldn't he be too? I made some space between us and ran over near the edge. Come and get it. The polar bear charged at me full speed. At the last second, I jumped out of the way, causing it to slip right off the edge and down to the ground below. Piece of cake. As I looked over the edge, I could see some of the ice below had melted too. Almost looked like it had formed a word. Interesting. With the polar bear gone, I entered the door and could see that there was an elevator and path to go up. I stepped into the elevator and headed down to the base. On day 67 to 70, I entered the base and went over to talk to Benoit and Rhodey. Both of them were really excited and impressed by how far I had gotten. They also told me how much fun they were having down in the base. I was glad to hear it, but something was bothering me. Oh, I wanted to ask you guys about something I found. On one of the last floors, I found a crystal with another princess message. Maybe there's two princesses, but something did seem off to me. Before they could answer though, the old woman from the swamp came out of nowhere.
This place is full of tricks. That's probably all it is. You should just ignore it.
Whoa, what brings you down here?
I thought I would pay you a visit. This is quite a nice place you've built down here. If your offer still stands, I wouldn't mind living down here after all.
I thought that sounded great, so I got right to work building her a house. I thought it was strange that she had changed her mind, but in any case, it would be good to have some more friends around. Once her house was complete, I headed over to Benoit to see if he had anything new to sell.
As a matter of fact, I do. I managed to find some lapis. You can enchant your armor with this.
I made a fresh set of coins with my gold and exchanged it for a stack of lapis. I entered the old woman's hut and used her enchanting table to upgrade my gear. I'll be able to tackle any biome or enemy now. I stepped outside to head back up the floors when I remembered we had a statue to work on. I made my way back up and got going on the next part. It didn't take too long and I was soon done. On to the next floor. On day 71 to 74, I returned to the last ice level, then started making my way up to the next door. Oof, it's usually not this difficult to reach the next level. Once I had maneuvered to the door, I entered in and was surprised by what I saw on the other side. Did I just enter the nether? The whole atmosphere had changed. But in the meantime, I decided to mine the magma blocks off the wall. I was going to need those for the statue later. I headed through the door. Wait a second, this looks like the same room, but the door is farther away. What's going on? I ran down the hallway and passed through the door. It was the same hallway again, but the door was even farther away than before. What kind of twisted joke is this? I ran through the next door, and it was the same thing, but the door was even farther away. I started running for the door, but paused about halfway through. I must have missed something. I'm gonna go back. I turned to go through the last door, when suddenly, a bunch of piglins came bursting through, wielding axes. I tried to run away, but didn't have any other choice but to fight. With my upgraded gear, I managed to knock both of them out pretty quickly. Okay, maybe I just need to keep moving forward. I moved ahead when suddenly a couple of blazes spawned. I swung furiously to avoid catching on fire. Suddenly, there were more piglins too. I kept fighting and swinging. I had come so far. Soon, they were all defeated. Okay, let's keep going. Wait, which way was I going? I was completely turned around. I headed toward one of the doors to go through it. At the time, I didn't know that I was heading back the way I came in, but it turned out that was just what I needed to do. On days 75 to 78, I emerged from the door and found myself in the end. What is going on? Now I'm jumping through dimensions. I took out my compass to figure out where the next door was, but it was just spinning in circles. Looks like I'm going to have to find the next door the old-fashioned way. I started making my way toward the nearest end city when I accidentally looked at the nearest Enderman in the eyes. He attacked! Back off, Slender Boy! boy. It took a few swings of my sword, but I was able to knock him out. It might not be a bad idea to gather up some ender pearls, actually. Those could come in handy. With this in mind, I started my raid on the endermen. One by one, I struck them down and collected the ender pearls. At one point, I even had multiple of them attacking me at once, which was a little scary. But eventually, I'd gotten all the pearls I felt I needed. That ought to do it. But hey, might as well collect some blocks for the statue too. I took out my pick and mined up some of the end stone on the ground, getting everything I needed. Then, I headed to the nearest structure, which was covered in shulkers. Time to duck and cover! The shulkers started firing at me, and I did my best to block their shots with my shield and hit them with my sword. I wasn't perfect though, and soon started levitating. Ugh, that doesn't feel so good. The levitating effect wore off, and I dropped to the ground. Luckily, I wasn't too high, and it didn't do too much damage. Finally, I was able to get close enough to the shulkers to finish them all off. Alright, let's see what's up here. I entered the end city and started following the path. There were more shulkers along the way, which I was able to fight off. Sometimes their levitating power even helped me out. It took a little bit to get through everything, but eventually I emerged on the roof and could see a door. That door looks a little weird, but it must be the way through. Let's see what happens. On day 79 to 84, I suddenly appeared on the end central island, and much to my fear, I could see the ender dragon flying around in the distance. This wizard isn't messing around. Looks like I'm gonna have to fight the ender dragon. I lunged forward as the dragon swooped around overhead. What ensued was an epic battle. Okay, first things first, I gotta take care of those end crystals. It's a good thing I got those ender pearls. By throwing the ender pearls, I teleported to the top of the towers and destroyed the end crystals. I had to be careful not to blow myself up, but one by one, I managed to destroy all of them. Alright, big guy, it's just you and me now. I ran into the middle of the island and worked on bringing down the dragon's health. The dragon flew by overhead, trying to blast me with its dragon breath. The dragon soon landed, and I was able to get some hits in. As the dragon flew around, I took aim with my elite bow and managed to get some hits in that way too. At long last, the dragon swooped in low, and I hit him with an arrow, finally destroying him. He exploded, dropping a ton of XP orbs. I did it! If I can beat the dragon, surely I can beat a wizard. It was just then that I noticed a chest had appeared on top of the center column. I ran over and opened it up. Look at all these nether scraps. And what's this? In the middle of the chest was a Paladin Sword. I took it out and equipped it. With the sword in hand, a bunch of lights started sparkling around me, and I leveled up into a full-blown paladin. I feel even stronger now, and look what my sword can do! As I swung my sword, I could see it was launching a light sword in the direction I was aiming. So cool! Just then, I noticed there was a button and trapdoor nearby too. I hit the button and dropped into the hole. When I landed, I saw a familiar room, one with an elevator and some steps. I hit the switch and headed into the elevator. On days 85 to 89, I emerged in the base where Benoit, Rhodey, and the old woman came running out to meet me.
You're back. That must mean you're getting close to the top. You're doing great.
Thanks. I've just got a few things to do here, and I think I'll finally be at the top. First of all, I wanted to finish the statue, using the extra materials I had collected. No dragon was as scary as one breathing fire in your face, so I made sure to add a stream of fire. And just like that, it was finished. Is this what you thought I'd build when I started? Let me know what you think. With the statue complete, I headed down to the crafting area and used the gold and netherite to create some netherite ingots. Then I used the ingots to upgrade my tools and sword to netherite. Now that everything was upgraded, it was time to say goodbye to my friends before heading up to the final floors. Well guys, it looks like there's actually some hope of us getting out of here. It's been awesome getting to know you, and if I don't make it, hopefully this base can help you until the next adventurer comes along.
You are a great friend, Zozo. I know you can do it. We will see you soon, mon ami.
I turned and headed for the door. I was a man on a mission, and no one was going to get in my way. On days 90 to 94, I emerged in a stone corridor. As I stepped into the room, I was immediately attacked by some hoglins. Luckily, I was able to quickly destroy them. There was something familiar about this place. Wait, I think that was the hoglin from day 1. This must be the castle I saw before. I was getting close, but I had to stay focused. I opened a nearby door and immediately took some damage. What was that? I took a look inside the room and didn't see anything dangerous. I shut the door again and took more damage. Oh boy, this place must be trapped. I'm gonna have to watch my step. I proceeded down the hallways and ran into more mobs. This place was crawling with enemies. The mobs fought like their lives depended on it, which they did. Unlucky for them though, my new armor and weapons were stacked. They didn't stand a chance. After a ton of fighting, I finally pushed through a large group of them and had a moment to heal up. Well, I might have a few arrows sticking out of me, but I'm still here. I headed back into the corridors, fighting off skeletons as I went. This Paladin Sword was definitely coming in handy, as I was able to cut down enemies from far away. I kept pushing, taking out piglins and other enemies along the way. Finally entered a room and could tell something was different. On days 95 to 96, I entered a banquet hall and saw something illuminated on the wall. Subscribe. I keep seeing this word everywhere. In any case, I'm happy you're here and appreciate your support. If you liked the video, please consider subscribing. On days 97 to 98, I had gone through a side door and found myself facing a white wall. Suddenly, there was a clicking sound as a drawbridge lowered. Standing in the center of the room was a giant pigless. Uh-oh, this isn't gonna be an easy fight. The pigless charged at me. He quickly hit me twice with his mace, which nearly depleted all of my health. If I was gonna survive, I was gonna have to be more careful. Not bad, Baconator, but let's see how you like this. Huh? I had swung my sword, but the pigless disappeared. Where did he go? Suddenly, he reappeared right next to me, nearly catching me off guard. Holy cow! This guy packed a punch. It took everything I had not to get hit, and I had to keep eating golden apples to stay in the fight. By using my Paladin Sword, though, I was able to hang in there. My friends are counting on me. I can't lose. I kept swinging and fighting until at long last, I landed the final blow, destroying the pigless. It was time to face the wizard. On day 99, I stepped into a large hall. Up ahead, there was a large wooden door. I stepped forward, and the door creaked open, revealing the wizard standing on a platform ahead of me. I walked into the room. Wizard, your traps have failed to stop me. I won't let you continue to keep people captive, and I'm going to free the princess. Get out of my way, or I'll move you myself.
Ha ha ha, you've done well, but I can't allow you to leave this place. Knights and adventurers can't be trusted.
Then you've made your decision. Think fast. I swung my sword, sending a sword beam flying at him as flames began to appear around me. I jumped out of the way and the flames exploded. This guy wasn't messing around.
I'll show you what real magic can do.
The wizard shot blasts of green energy at me as I continued to fire off sword energy. He was strong, but I was getting hits in. Suddenly, there was a crash of thunder and a red cloud appeared above me as fireballs started to rain down. Ah, that's hot, that's hot.
Haha, what do you think of this?
There was a poof, and a bunch of wizards appeared, who all charged at me. Holy cannoli, I didn't even know it was possible to do this kind of magic. The wizard clones were aggressive, but I was able to cut them down pretty easily. Then, I kept firing off sword blasts.
Oh, why isn't this working?
The wizard was getting frustrated. I was winning. Suddenly, he started firing off all of his spells at once. This was starting to be too much to handle. I could just keep hitting him. As one of my sword hits landed, he suddenly started to glow and burst into an explosion of light. Was that it? I did it! I think. Something didn't seem right about that. But the princess, I need to save her. On day 100, I took a look around the room and saw there was a lever hiding behind one of the banners. I flipped the switch, which opened a secret door. I headed inside. I'm Zozo. I'm here to rescue you.
Zozo, my hero. Your hair.
Where's the other princess?
The what? Oh, yes, the other, oh, forget it.
There was a burst of light, and the wizard was standing in the place of the princess. I defeated you, and I'll do it again.
Wait!
Sorry, it's hard to keep doing the voice. I really didn't mean any harm.
What are you talking about? You threw me down a hole. You set me on fire. I fought a giant scorpion in an arena.
All illusions. In case you didn't notice, I'm pretty good at magic. In fact, it has all been an illusion, including everyone you've met. They're all parts of my personality, manifested by different people. You were never in any real danger.
Then what was the point of all of this?
The truth is, I'm just lonely. The only true thing was the story the old woman, I told you about the king.
Well, I'm sorry that part is true, but don't you think if you have the power to create anything, it'd be better to do something that actually helps people? The wizard thought about it for a second.
Yeah, I guess I was too busy feeling sorry for myself to see that. I'm sorry for all the trouble I've caused you. Please, let me send you on your way.
There was a flash of light and we were suddenly back outside of the castle. I ran back into the land as the wizard and all his personalities waved goodbye. I guess in the end we all got what we wanted. I escaped and the wizard got himself a new friend. Perhaps one day we will go on an adventure together.